Kazakhstan's participation in the work of the UN Security Council as a non-permanent member, of course, was only an episode in the history of its very large-scale and versatile foreign policy, but without any doubt, it was an important episode. It was a kind of exam passed in the most important international organization in the world, one which allowed us to assess not so much the degree of our country's influence on international processes, but rather our readiness to perform at the highest level in the world and to meet the highest standards. On March 2nd, 1992, a historic event took place. Kazakhstan became a member of the United Nations. On June 5th, 1992, the decree of the President of the Republic of Kazakhstan on the establishment of the permanent mission of the Republic of Kazakhstan to the UN was signed.
Уважаемый господин председатель, уважаемый господин генеральный секретарь, дамы и господа, от имени народа республики я имею честь передать вам слова глубокой благодарности за этот шаг и заявить, что Республика Казахстан, как миролюбивое государство, способна в полной мере выполнять обязательства, содержащиеся в Уставе ООН. Не менее важна для нас и нынешняя сессия, поскольку ее трибуна впервые предоставлена президенту Республики Казахстан. Пользуясь этим случаем, я горячо приветствую представителей всех государств, членов Организации Объединенных Наций.
This was a very serious challenge for Kazakhstan because the UN Security Council in 2017 turned out to be kind of a hotspot in global geopolitics.
When we arrived in Kiev, the protesters had been pushed back. With so many conflicting reports.
At this point, the international situation had become seriously tense. Most recently, just in 2014, there was an acute conflict over Ukraine, and it had split the world community.
Exactly that. The previous day, funerals had started to take.
Western countries had accused Russia of annexing Crimea and directly participating in the conflict in eastern Ukraine. In this situation, Kazakhstan, led by President Nursultan Nazarbayev, demonstrated the aerobatics of a multi-vector policy. Kazakhstan did not take any side in this complex international conflict. Nazarbayev said that Kazakhstan understands Russia's motivation for the Crimea, but no more. Agreeing to nominate Kazakhstan as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council was a serious and very responsible step on the part of President Nursultan Nazarbayev. Because from the very beginning of Kazakhstan's presidency, it was obvious that Kazakhstan would have to participate in the most difficult discussions in the Security Council, which would be initiated by a variety of conflicting parties. Of course, each of them would expect its support. But President Nursultan Nazarbayev, despite the complexity of the upcoming participation of Kazakhstan in the Security Council, supported this idea because it generally allowed bringing Kazakhstan's foreign policy to a new level. For a country that is located in a strategically important place in the center of Eurasia, it is critically important to have an adequate foreign policy. But even more importantly, at the very moment when relations between the great powers are not at the best level, it is very important to be in the center of events. Therefore, Kazakhstan's participation in the UN Security Council was actually a continuation of the foreign policy that President Nursultan Nazarbayev has pursued since Kazakhstan gained independence, one which has always brought good results. Foreign policy, especially multi-vector, should still be very active. Actually, the election of Kazakhstan as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council was the result of its active foreign policy in previous years and the authority of its first president, Nursultan Nazarbayev. Moreover, this authority does not depend on foreign policy circumstances and relations between the great powers. Therefore, the candidacy of Kazakhstan in the elections was supported by representatives of various countries with different political preferences. On June 28, 2016, our country received 138 votes out of 193 participants and became the first country from our region to become a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council. The UN Security Council is a permanent political body of the UN which helps to solve global security problems through diplomatic means. It consists of 15 members, 5 of which are permanent: England, France, the United States, Russia, and China. It also includes 10 non-permanent members, who are elected for a term of 2 years and cannot be re-elected immediately after the end of this term. Kazakhstan assumed the duties of a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council on January 1st, 2017. According to Kazakh experts, membership in this organization will be a good school for Kazakh diplomacy. This required Kazakhstan to noticeably step up its foreign policy efforts. The members of the Security Council should participate in the discussion of a wide variety of issues on the global agenda, many of which relate to various aspects often unrelated to the traditional issues of the greater Eurasian region. For example, Kazakhstan was responsible for the Committee on Eritrea, Somalia. Kazakhstan was also responsible for the committees on Afghanistan and the Islamic State, IS. All this required a deep study of the existing problems in order to provide the UN Security Council with the most balanced and reasoned position. But, of course, one of the most important priorities of Kazakhstan in the UN Security Council was the issue of a nuclear-free world. This topic has always been of the greatest importance for Kazakhstan, taking into account the fact that in its territory during the Soviet era, there was a nuclear weapons test site in Semipalatinsk. Therefore, the most striking event of the period when Kazakhstan was a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council was the speech of the first president Nursultan Nazarbayev at the meeting of the Security Council on January 18, 2018.
Именно крупнейшие ядерные державы должны быть во главе борьбы за безъядерный мир, показать пример сокращения ОМУ. Но это не означает, что остальные страны должны оставаться в стороне, что от них мало что зависит. Но с другой стороны, если великие ядерные державы будут говорить, что мы будем оставаться ядерными и будем совершенствовать, а вам всем остальным запрещается, я думаю, это будет плохо работать. Поэтому я призываю направиться в этом направлении, работать вместе. Мировое сообщество – это единый организм, который силен в своем многообразии, многоукладстве, который может выживать, развиваться при наличии баланса, гармонии между населяющими нашу планету нациями и народами. Именно поэтому мы должны совместно добиваться более безопасного мира, более справедливого мирового порядка, основанного на верховенстве международного права.
On January 18th, the UN Security Council held a discussion on nuclear non-proliferation. In his speech, the first president called for the renunciation of nuclear weapons and proposed the capital of Kazakhstan, Astana, as a platform for negotiations on this issue. In his speech, Nursultan Nazarbayev said, "The reality of today is that many conflicts can be prevented and effectively resolved only if there is mutual understanding and mutual trust between the world's nuclear powers. It is the major nuclear powers that should be at the head of the struggle for a nuclear-free world, to show an example of reducing weapons of mass destruction. The world community is a single organism that is strong in its diversity, which can survive and develop in the presence of balance and harmony between the nations and peoples inhabiting our planet." It is also worth paying attention to the words of Nursultan Nazarbayev about trust, the lack of which is observed in our world. The last thesis is especially important given the fact that the aggravation of relations between the great powers can lead to a violation of international obligations. Kazakhstan has always been consistent. For example, in April 2018, Kazakhstan abstained from voting on a resolution put forward by Russia condemning the aggression of the United States, Great Britain, and France against Syria. The resolution was then supported by China and Bolivia, while against stood most countries: the United States, Great Britain, France, the Netherlands, Sweden, Kuwait, Poland, and the Ivory Coast. Along with Kazakhstan, Ethiopia, Equatorial Guinea, and Peru abstained.
Созывая сегодняшнее внеочередное заседание Совета Безопасности ООН, Россия исходила из положений временных правил процедуры Совета. Необходимо понимать, что встречное требование украинской делегации инициировать отдельное заседание по другим пунктам повестки дня – не что иное, как попытка избежать ответственности за подрыв международной безопасности. Ситуация, описанная в нем, отсылает нас к событиям 4-летней давности и не имеет ничего общего с тем, что произошло в регионе вчера. То, что такое нарушение произошло, причем довольно опасными методами маневрирования в узком проливе, могло создать и создавало риски для нормального движения судов в этой акватории. Мы призываем партнеров по Совету Безопасности не брать на себя ответственность за опасное поведение украинских властей. Авторитету Совета будет нанесен непоправимый урон. Благодарю вас.
In this case, Kazakhstan proceeded from the fact that any negotiations are important and therefore it is impossible to avoid discussing them. Actually, then it was a procedural issue. These examples clearly demonstrate how difficult the situation was for Kazakhstan at the time of its work in the UN Security Council. But there is no doubt that it was a very useful experience. These 2 years in the UN Security Council have once again confirmed that the multi-vector policy of Kazakhstan is the strategically correct choice and almost the only possible option.